Joe, this is something this maybe is the most important thing that I wanted you to talk about because, yeah, I hear these calls all the time. Let's get these politicians to do something. Yeah, great idea. My wife mails letters. My wife calls these people. She goes to their town halls, and I have too. And I'm beginning to and sign petitions. I used to sign petitions. I don't even do that anymore. And when it comes to people like we're talking about here, these politicians on this show, um, I don't think it does any good. I want you to counter that argument. Tell me
I
that we
will.
can make these people do anything.
You know, and I've been in the political field too. I've managed political campaigns. I had a political consulting firm years ago down in Houston. And I firmly believe that the name of the game in politics is you have to put unrelenting pressure on elected officials. And if you don't, their only goal is going to be to get reelected. Okay. And if they can, whatever path of least resistance to getting reelected that they can find, that's the path they're going to take. Now, the problem with gun violence is this: America, as a populace, has not really stood up and made the demands. Some have. Okay. Some have. But most really haven't. I mean, I cannot tell you how difficult it is during when the legislature is in session in Iowa. And I'm not a spokesperson for moms, but I know moms is in that legislative session every single year, and I've been down there for the last 3 or 4 years. And it is almost impossible to mobilize people to get into to fill up that Capitol. Okay. And, it's just so very difficult. And the reason why is because, movements are based on what affects me, right? The labor movement, the environmental movement, the anti-war movement during the Vietnam period, the civil rights movement, all right? And as much gun violence as there is in this country, it doesn't affect most people. Now, also, I would say along that line that most gun homicides and gun violence is perpetrated against people of color. And as a movement, our movement has done a very bad job of pulling in people of color into the movement. The gun violence movement is largely a white middle class movement. And that might not be true as much on the two coasts and in some of the major metropolitan areas, but we have really not done what we need to do. And this is what I'm trying to do right now in Waterloo, is to sort of mobilize that and then hopefully broaden that out into the state. But I just feel like, and I'm pessimistic too, George, especially, after what happened at Sandy Hook. I thought Sandy Hook was a turning point. And I've been very disappointed by President Obama. I thought President Obama would come out of the White House and make this as like Habitat for Humanity, as President Carter did. And he helped, focus the nation on the tragedy and the massacre at Sandy Hook. But then he came out and he's been completely silent. And so we need more people to help us mobilize on this, and we need people to be responsive. And frankly, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to understand. It's the most frustrating thing of what I'm doing right now, because I try to emphasize to people how many children are being killed. Take, for instance, Uvalde. And let me just say something. When those children were killed in there, that was the most nightmarish, horrific, unbelievably god-awful way to end their lives, their precious lives. Those guns were blasting. The gunpowder was out there, the blood and the bones, everybody, and the little children. It was the worst thing you can ever imagine. And it happens in families too. It happens in families. Those children massacred in Uvalde amount to 6% of the children between the ages of 0 and 12 who will be killed this year in America, between the ages of infant and 12. Let me just say that again. This year, as last year and the year before, more than 300 children between the ages of infant and 12 will be shot to death. And many more will be grievously injured, lose limbs, suffer paralysis, okay? And their families will live a lifetime of trauma from which they can never escape, and heartache from which they will never be shed of, ever. And this is all in service of gun militants and their delusional ideas about the Second Amendment.